You know that feeling when you are, like, absolutely 100% determined to do something good?
Oh, yeah, like something really positive for yourself, right?
Exactly. And then your brain, or maybe your physical body, just completely rebels against you.
It is the worst. You literally watch yourself doing the exact thing you swore you wouldn't do.
Right. And you're just standing there internally screaming, wondering who is actually driving the bus, you know?
I mean, it's just this universal human frustration. We all do it.
Yeah, why do we constantly do the exact things we don't want to do? Well, in today's deep dive, we are taking on that exact question.
And we are so glad to have you in the room with us as our third co-host today,
Yeah, we're exploring this whole thing through this fascinating sermon called From Captivity to Conquerors, The War Within.
which is a great title.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what's absolutely wild here is that the core text for this very modern psychological breakdown is a 2,000-year-old document.
It's a totally timeless piece of writing.
Hmm.
We are diving into a passage from the biblical book of Romans, specifically Romans chapter 7.
Right.
And there is this brilliant, very pragmatic premise that kicks off this whole exploration. Because people are constantly asking theologians, like, what Bible translation should I actually be reading?
Which is a fair question. There are so many of them out there.
There really are. But the most honest practical answer is just, well, whichever translation helps you finally make sense of Romans 7.15.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Romans 7.15, if you try to read it in those older classical translations, is genuinely hilarious to read out loud.
It really is.
It's like a complete linguistic maze. It might be the world's most confusing, holiest tongue twister. Like, just listen to how it sounds in the revised, authorized English version.
Oh boy, lay it on me.
Quote, "For I know not what I do, for not what I would, that do I, but what I hate, that do I."
I mean, it sounds like an ancient riddle you have to solve to cross a bridge.
Right. Or listen to the classic King James Version. "For that which I do I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that do I."
Yeah, that is definitely rough.
And if you think that's rough, Young's literal translation is even thicker. Quote, "For that which I work I do not acknowledge. For not what I will, this I practice, but what I hate, this I do."
You read that and you legitimately wonder if your brain just short-circuited.
Completely. It perfectly illustrates how ancient, profound wisdom can just bounce right off of us because the syntax is utterly impenetrable.
Right, and if you can actually follow the grammatical gymnastics of those older versions, then hey, congratulations, you found your translation.
Good for you.
Yeah. But for the rest of us, if you can't untangle the sentence, you certainly can't apply the concept to your life.
Which is a tragedy.
It really is, because this specific verse is naming a profound, undeniable truth about the daily human experience. The profound reality just gets buried under a mountain of archaic grammar.
Which is why I love the contrast with modern plain language translations, like the New Living Translation. Oh, it makes such a difference.
It really cuts through all the these and thous, drops the riddle, and just hits you right in the chest. Here is how that exact same verse reads today. Quote, "I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate."
It is so stark.
It is, and hearing it phrased that clearly brings up a massive question for me. The author here is the Apostle Paul.
Right, an elite historical scholar.
Exactly, a revered figure who wrote half of the New Testament. So why does this titan of history sound exactly like someone today sitting on a therapist's couch describing their own daily self-sabotage?
That is the crucial question. And to understand it, we really have to look closely at the timeline.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the grammatical key to this whole passage is the verb tense.
Mm-hmm.
Paul is not writing this from the perspective of an arrogant, enlightened man looking down at his messy past.
He's not looking backward.
No, he isn't saying, back in the day, I wanted to do right, but I did what I hated. He is writing the present tense. I do what I hate.
Yeah, he is pulling back the curtain on a current, active daily struggle that is happening to him as he is writing the letter.
So he's basically saying, I am doing this right now. I am currently failing.
Precisely. This is Paul, the church planter, the renowned apostle, writing to a new church in Rome, and he is essentially normalizing a tension that people often feel entirely too embarrassed to admit.
Especially in a religious setting, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Where everyone feels the pressure to look like they have it all together, he is validating the massive, frustrating gap between our best intentions and our actual physical actions.
It's so relieving to hear.
It is. And by doing so in the present tense, he takes this struggle out of the realm of, past mistakes you should be over by now, and places it squarely in the reality of the ongoing human condition.
And because he's talking about a present-day reality, we can map this ancient struggle onto incredibly relatable modern-day scenarios.
Oh, definitely.
Like, think about the classic January 3rd phenomenon. You make a New Year's resolution, it's January 1st, and you are absolutely convicted.
You're going to the gym.
You're going to go to the gym, you are going to eat better, you are going to read 50 books this year, your spirit is entirely willing. I want to do what is right.
Yep, the intention is there.
But then on January 3rd, that 5:00 a.m. alarm goes off in the pitch black, and your physical hand reaches out completely independent of your conscious willpower and hits the snooze button.
You didn't even make a decision.
Exactly. Your physical body made an executive decision while your spirit was still asleep.
It's the perfect illustration of the disconnect. The mind is resolute, but the physical body just overrides the system to seek immediate comfort.
Oh, and the toe-stubbing example. You are having a peaceful, highly spiritual morning, and you accidentally kick the leg of your dresser.
Oh, no.
Suddenly, a sailor-blushing combination of curse words flies out of your mouth. Words you thought you had completely abandoned a decade ago.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. But my absolute favorite scenario we found in this material was tailored for an audience in Queretaro, Mexico.
Oh, the market story.
Yes. Imagine you are traveling, and you're practicing your Spanish. You stand in front of the hotel mirror, carefully rehearsing the exact phrase you need for the local market.
You were totally prepared.
You walk up to the vendor, you open your mouth, fully intending to ask the phrase for how much it costs, cuánto cuesta, and somehow your brain completely short-circuits.
The wires just cross.
Yeah, and you end up proposing marriage to the vendor instead.
What's fascinating here is how we can upgrade Paul's ancient concept into a brilliant modern metaphor, the smartphone.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, so imagine your life, your mind and body, as a smartphone with a corrupted operating system.
Right.
The original software design, let's call that God's law, or your highest moral intentions, is perfect. The programmer's intention was absolutely flawless.
But something went wrong.
Exactly. Somewhere along the line, a virus slipped into the hard drive. This virus is human nature, our default setting, or what the biblical text calls the flesh.
Yes. So you were looking at your screen, navigating your day, and you intentionally tapped the app labeled Patience.
Right, a very good app.
But because of the infected operating system, the virus intercepts your command and opens the app for petty instead.
Oh, that is so true.
Yeah. Or you actively double-click on self-control, but the phone just launches snack time.
Every single time.
And then you swipe over to click the forgiveness icon, and the system completely ignores you. It buffers for a second and then pulls up a hold a grudge folder from 1998.
Yes, and let's be honest, some of us are still carrying around grudges that are running on dial-up internet.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They take absolutely forever to load, but we just refuse to delete them.
It beautifully highlights the mechanics of our frustration.
It really does. Paul is essentially saying when I fail, it's not because the law, the perfect app, is bad. The app is good.
Right.
It's because the underlying virus in my mortal body keeps hijacking my spiritual keystrokes. You tap one thing, the virus delivers another.
Okay, but I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because if we accept this whole operating system idea, it brings up a terrifying thought, like, let's step away from the smartphone for a second and think about walking a dog.
Okay, I'm with you.
Let's say I'm walking two incredibly cute, but highly energetic little Yorkies. We'll call them Louie and Coco.
Great names.
Thanks. So my mind says, we are staying on the sidewalk, I have the leash in my hand, I have the willpower, I yell, heel.
But they are terriers, so...
Exactly. Those dogs spot a squirrel, and before my brain can even process what's happening, I am suddenly horizontal, just being dragged through my neighbor's prized flowerbed.
Oh, man.
Right. So if the leash represents my willpower, and the dogs represent this infected, virus-laden human nature...
Yeah, I see where you're going.
Does this mean that no matter how much we renew our minds, we are just entirely at the mercy of our unredeemed bodies every single time a distraction pops up? Like, are we just destined to be dragged into the bushes forever?
That is the exact dilemma, the exact feeling of helplessness that humans have historically tried to solve.
Because we hate feeling out of control.
We absolutely hate being dragged into the bushes.
Yeah.
We crave control. We want to know that our intentions matter.
Right.
And so if human nature is this prone to distraction, if our internal operating system is this plagued by viruses, how do we fix it? The historical answer, and the one Paul knew intimately from his background as an elite Pharisee, was religious rulemaking.
Okay, making rules to fix the virus.
Exactly. The psychology behind it is actually quite profound. If the internal world is corrupted and untrustworthy, we try to contain it with rigid external structures. We build fences.
Right, the rabbinic logic of building a fence around the Torah. And when you dig into why they did this, it makes total
It
sense.
really does.
There's a core inner commandment from God. Let's say the core rule is do not do X.
Right.
The religious leaders looked around and realized that human nature is so clumsy, so virus prone, that people are inevitably going to accidentally stumble into doing X.
So they need a buffer.
Yes, to protect that sacred inner commandment, they built an outer protective rule, a fence around the fence.
Exactly. The logic is entirely preventative, born out of a desire for spiritual safety.
Right.
Like, if you build a rule that keeps people 10 miles away from the actual sin, they couldn't possibly break the core commandment by accident. It's basically risk management for the soul.
But the specific historical examples of these fences show how extreme and burdensome this preventative logic ultimately became.
Oh, they definitely do.
The historical examples are wild. Take the rule against tree climbing on the Sabbath.
Right, yeah.
So the core Torah commandment basically forbids reaping or harvesting crops on the Sabbath.
Which makes sense, as a day of rest from agricultural labor.
Exactly. But the rabbis reason that if you climb a tree just to relax, you might accidentally snap off a twig.
Or, like, brush against a piece of fruit and knock it loose.
Right, and that accidental snap would technically be classified as reaping. So what's the solution? Build a fence? Ban climbing trees altogether?
It's just wild. The actual law is about resting from your farming job.
Yeah, but the fence means you are legally forbidden from climbing a tree just to get your kid's stuck frisbee down.
And because humans are humans, rigid fences inevitably create absurd loopholes.
Oh, 100%.
Like, my favorite one is the handkerchief workaround.
Yes, tell them about that one.
So the core rule for bad work on the Sabbath, right? And work was defined to include carrying an object from a private space into a public one.
Okay, simple enough.
Right, but that means having a handkerchief in your pocket counts as carrying an object. That is a violation. That's work.
Which sounds so exhausting to keep track of.
It really does. But here is the loophole. A garment isn't carried. A garment is worn.
Ah, I see it coming.
Yeah, so the legally sanctioned workaround was to take that exact same handkerchief and tie it around your waist like a sash or a belt.
And suddenly it's totally legal.
Exactly. It's the exact same piece of cloth, making the exact same trip to the exact same destination. But in a pocket, it's a sin, and tied around the waist, it's fashion.
It's fashion. I love that so much. And there's an even stricter, more anxiety-driven category of fences called muksa, which translates to set aside.
Right, the really extreme ones.
Yeah, this fence dictates that you can't even touch certain items on the Sabbath, like money or a pen or a hammer. Why? Because if you hold a pen, you might be tempted to write.
Or if you touch a coin, you might do business.
Exactly. So the fence forbids you from even making physical contact with the object that could potentially lead to the action that could potentially break the rule. It is just layers upon layers of anxiety.
Now, it is very easy for us sitting here today to look at a handkerchief belt or a ban on touching a pen and laugh. It seems completely absurd.
Sure, it sounds silly to us.
But we really shouldn't laugh.
Mm.
Because these fences were not built by fools, and they weren't built by hypocrites looking to control people.
Right.
They were built by incredibly sincere individuals who loved God deeply and could not bear the thought of grieving him by accident. They were terrified of their own infected operating systems.
And if we're honest, we do the exact same thing today. We just use different materials for our fences.
Oh, absolutely.
We refuse to take a second glass of wine at a dinner party, not because we're drunk, but just to be safe and control how others perceive us.
Or we make absolutely sure that the people at the next table over see us bowing our heads to say grace at a restaurant.
Building a little behavioral fence to prove our devotion. We stack up our own modern rules, hoping that if we just build them high enough, we can finally contain the virus inside of us.
But this brings us to the heartbreaking foundational truth of Paul's realization. The most sincere, most loving, most intricate system of fences in human history cannot cure the internal flesh problem.
It just doesn't work.
No. You can build 1,000 walls around your heart, you can ban tree climbing, you can police your diet and your vocabulary, but the virus is already inside the house.
Sin always finds the gate.
Exactly. External rules completely fail to stop an internal war.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when you spend your entire life building these fences, monitoring every action, and you realize they still aren't working.
It leads to a profound, bone-deep exhaustion.
Yes, you are fighting this relentless all-day tug-of-war between the mind and the body, and that physical and spiritual exhaustion connects directly to Romans 7:24, where Paul reaches his breaking point and lets out this agonizing cry. He
Yeah.
says, "Oh, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death?" Or as the older translations put it, "Who will deliver me from this body of death?"
And the historical context behind that specific phrase, body of death, is incredibly dark.
It really is.
It is visceral and horrifying. Historians and scholars believe Paul might be referencing a specific Roman punishment that his original readers in the first century would have immediately understood.
The kind of punishment.
Well, it was a punishment reserved specifically for murderers. The Roman courts would sometimes take the rotting corpse of the murder victim and physically strap it face-to-face, back-to-back onto the living murderer.
Just strapped right to them with no way to get it off.
Exactly. And wherever that man went, to the market, to work, to sleep, he had to drag that literal dead weight with him.
That is so dark.
He was permanently chained to his crime. And eventually, the decay and the bacteria from the dead corpse would actually seep into the living man, poison his bloodstream, and slowly kill him too.
Wow. Inescapable death.
Right. So when Paul says, "Who will deliver me from this body of death?" he is saying that his old nature, this infected operating system, is strapped to his back. It's rotting. It's poisoning his best intentions. It's dragging him down. And no amount of willpower or rule-making can unchain him from it.
He wants to be a conqueror, but he is living in captivity.
Yeah.
And to help us grasp the emotional weight of that ancient, gruesome image today, we have to look at how this feeling of inescapable captivity shows up in modern life.
Oh, for sure.
There's this tragic story shared about a modern-day pastor friend that perfectly illustrates this, like this body of death in terms of overwhelming circumstances.
Right, yeah, it's a heartbreaking story.
So this friend was in seminary, incredibly devoted, but he had to take time off for financial reasons.
Which happens a lot.
Totally. So he finally makes it back, ready to serve, and then he is just hit by a relentless avalanche of hardship. First, he endures 4 massive strokes.
Oh my God, 4.
4. And then he gets shingles. And then he contracts COVID and pneumonia on top of that.
I mean, that is just unbelievable.
And it gets worse. While he is recovering, his wife is hospitalized.
Yeah.
And they are told she needs a heart transplant.
Wow. Just one thing after another.
Right. He can't work, obviously. Their only car breaks down. They finally scrape together enough money to get another car, and things look like they might just be turning around.
Finally a break.
Nope. A fire, started accidentally by a neighbor, burns their entire house to the ground. No money, failing health, everything they own turned to ash. It is a complete modern-day Job moment.
It is a devastating story, and it represents the ultimate feeling of being held captive.
Yeah.
That pastor is strapped to circumstances he did not choose, dragging this heavy, painful reality everywhere he goes, completely exhausted and feeling utterly defeated. It echoes Paul's situation perfectly.
Because when the internal war and the external tragedies pile up, you are left crying out the only thing left to cry. Who will free me?
Right.
So what does this all mean? Because if this sermon and our deep dive today ended right here at verse 24, with the metaphorical rotting corpse strapped to our backs and the insurmountable tragedies of life crushing us, we would just have to pack up the microphones and go home completely hopeless.
It would be a profoundly depressing place to leave you.
But verse 25 provides the ultimate plot twist in human history.
It really does. Paul asks, "Who will free me?" And immediately in the very next breath answers his own desperate question. He writes, "Thank God the answer is in Jesus Christ our Lord."
The rescue arrives. And the way this resolution is explained brings us right back to that technological metaphor we were using earlier.
Oh, right, the smartphone.
Yeah. So the rules, the fences, the law, they were essentially diagnostic tools. They could scan the hard drive and say, hey, look, you have a virus.
Right, they point to the chains and say, "You are chained to a body of death."
Exactly. But a diagnostic tool has absolutely no power to fix the code or break the chains.
It just tells you what's wrong.
Yeah. Jesus, however, steps directly into that corrupted system. He takes the virus of human sin onto himself, and at Calvary, he hits the ultimate system-wide reset button.
I love that. The law could only show us the chains, but Jesus is the key that finally breaks the padlock and unchains the corpse.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, It fundamentally changes the nature of the daily struggle for the listener.
Oh, completely.
Because the key theological distinction here is between salvation and sanctification.
Right.
Because Jesus hit that reset button, this exhausting daily internal tug-of-war is no longer a battle for your ultimate salvation.
Yeah.
The war for your soul has already been decisively won.
That is so freeing.
It really is. Instead, these daily frustrations, the snoozed alarms, the stubbed
The
toes.
petty app opening up when you meant to be patient.
Exactly. These are merely the growing pains of your sanctification.
Yeah.
It is literally just the system rebooting and cleaning out the leftover bugs.
Meaning it's just the messy process of growing and changing. Like you might lose a skirmish to your flesh this afternoon. You might get completely dragged to the neighbor's flower bed by the Yorkies today.
That happens to all of us.
It does. But the war itself is already won. And there's a really beautiful point made here about how this reality should shape community.
Right. It makes the church, specifically naming the English Christian church in our source, a genuine safe space.
Yeah, it's an open invitation to people who are exhausted from fighting hidden wars.
It lets them know that they do not have to win the war today just to be welcome at the table. You don't have to have a perfectly uncorrupted hard drive to belong.
That is a profound shift in perspective.
It really moves our entire focus away from a frantic, fear-based adherence to rules and toward a grace-based understanding of our own human limitations.
Exactly. The tension between our good intentions and our flawed actions doesn't magically disappear, but its threat level is completely neutralized.
Right. You are no longer fighting for your life. You're just learning how to walk in the freedom you already have.
It takes all the shame right out of the equation. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with, building strictly on what we've uncovered today.
Oh, I love a good final thought.
Yeah, so the text explicitly states that as long as we are walking around in these earthly bodies, this internal war, this virus in the operating system is going to persist.
Right, the Yorkies are always going to want to chase the squirrel.
That is a given. But if this frustrating friction is actually guaranteed by design, and if struggling with it is evidence of your ongoing sanctification rather than evidence of your ultimate failure,
Which is a huge if.
right, then how much wasted energy are you spending condemning yourself for the minor skirmishes you lose? If the war is already won, are the modern fences you're frantically building just to protect your image actually the very things keeping you captive?
That is heavy.
It is something to think about the next time you find yourself doing the exact thing you didn't want to do. Thanks for joining us as our third co-host today, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.